as worldly of a Renaissance man as I am, I'm not actually as big of a Shakespeare fan as many college faculty members are at this point. So, do you know what Much Ado About Nothing is about, the Shakespeare play? The general gist of it?
Yes.
It's a comedy. I know that much.
Yep. I've actually seen it twice, but I can't off the top of my head tell you exactly what it's about.
There's a wedding or something in it, isn't there? There's like he has to stop a wedding or something like that.
It's like a romantic farce. If you're searching for what the connection to this episode is, I can't give you one.
Okay.
Because
that is what I was looking for.
Yeah, it seems I don't really get the title, honestly, because it's not even an episode that's about Boimler so much as it is about Mariner. So I'm not sure why they went with that title.
Yeah. Do you know, here's a little bit of trivia for you. This is the what number episode or film to feature the name of a character played by a regular series cast member in its title. In this case, Boimler in Much Ado About Nothing. See. So how many before this have there been, or what number is this that it's happened?
10.
12. Pretty close.
Ooh, that was my second guess, was 12. Damn.
It's so it's Spock's Brain, Search for Spock, Data Lore, Elementary Dear Data, Data's Day, Fistful of Datas, Menage a Troy, Dax, House of Quark, Our Man Bashir, and Dr. Bashir, I presume, are all the examples of it happening. So Data had the most with 4, I think. Yeah,
from the TNG cast, Data has the most, and Troy has the most unfortunate, I suppose.
Yeah, Menage a Troy. And Dax is just Dax, which is kind of cute. But yeah, well, so let's get into Much Ado About Boimler. It's the latest episode of Star Trek Lower Decks. We're going to take a break, play a clip from the episode. We'll come back and break it down.
Ensign Boimler, reporting for duty!
Dude, what is wrong with you?
Nothing, I'm just phasing, no biggie.
Disagree, it's kind of a biggie.
Ensign, report to sickbay.
But that's for sick people.
Now.
Okay, so Much Ado About Boimler is the 7th episode of the first season of Star Trek Lower Decks. It came out on September 17th, 2020. Written by M. Willis, which is a mysterious name. Directed by Barry J. Kelly. In-universe date is 57752.62380. In this episode, Mariner tries to impress her best friend from Starfleet Academy, who is now a visiting captain. Boimler is sent to a Starfleet medical ship after a transporter accident puts him out of phase. Do you want to start this one, Clay? I thought this was the best episode so far. I like this one quite a bit.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good too. I didn't think that they did enough with it, but I enjoyed it. Like I thought the Mariner story wasn't as deep diving as it could have been, because you get the sense that you get as the interactions with her and her friend, you get the stuff with she's like, well, she doesn't want to be a captain, or she wants to stay an ensign or whatever, but they never really dive into really why. It's just sort of like, that's just what it is.
Yep.
And I like that they split up the pairings differently, so you've got Tendi and Boimler, but they didn't really interact at all much during their trip.
When I noticed it, I was like, oh, they're doing it. It's Tendi and Boimler stuck together. And then she doesn't really have anything to do with it. She's just kind of the character who's along with Boimler for his journey at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she didn't even really need to go. They could have just sent the dog by itself, and it probably would have been fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I liked the alien that crushes the ship at the end. I thought that was fun.
Yeah. Did you recognize that alien?
Not
familiar?
Specifically.
I was surprised they didn't name it. I think it's supposed to be the alien from Encounter at Farpoint, the jellyfish creatures that they say. Yeah, I think it looks kind of like that anyway. Memory Alpha seems to think that's what it is, but they have a line about they've never seen an alien like that before, so I don't know if it's just supposed to be an homage. But I was surprised that they didn't call it out as, oh, it's the Encounter from Farpoint alien that's going on here. I like this one. I thought I think our common criticism is that it doesn't really go far enough, but I thought that this one was most in line with what you've been asking for, which is to just take they don't really do the whole thing with it, but just to take a plot line from a Star Trek episode and turn it into something else. They do that most bluntly with the character, the senior staff on the Cerritos who go to the planet are dressed in all black is a callback to Chain of Command, which is where Worf, Data, and Crusher break into the Cardassian plant to steal war plans or whatever. This one, the joke is that they're just going to plant some seeds or something.
Yeah,
so
I like that.
it's kind of an over-the-top reaction to what they're doing. And the other sort of the medical thing was just a callback to all the medical accidents that have happened in Star Trek the entire time. Like the old young guy is the rascal split, the character who's split, half aging rapidly and half de-aging.
Oh, is that something that's been on Star Trek before?
The de-aging thing is he even calls himself a little rascal or something. So it's the Rascals episode on TNG. And there's some other references. There's a reference to Voyager's Threshold with the salamander thing. There's a few other the sort of transporter accidents are always frequently there.
I like that. I love the multiple Captain Pike wheelchair guys.
when they're having like their Mai Tais by the pool.
Yeah.
So they don't take the plot and redo it or anything. I just thought it was I thought it was a good balance of they're referencing stuff that Star Trek fans will understand, but they're not calling it out constantly as like, this is a reference. So I thought they did a pretty good job of that, and I thought that it was a good balance. They're gradually sort of moving into what we were asking about, like the senior staff. There now seems to be a much more clear division between the lower decks characters and the other Starfleet characters. Like the entourage of this visiting captain are very traditional Star Trek characters who are appalled that Mariner is doing everything incorrectly. And I like that stuff. I think it's a good way for the show to go. Yeah,
I like it too. Yeah, I think my problem with this one is I didn't feel like the stories themselves were complete enough. They had some good stuff in it, and they hung together fairly well. But it was just like, I don't know, they play Mariner so incompetent that when they turn it on its head at the end, I didn't super believe it.
Yep.
Because it never seemed to me like she was maybe doing this on purpose. It just seemed like she wasn't ready for what the responsibility she was given. So when they flipped the switch at the end, I was like, well, okay.
I was surprised by it as well. It made sense when it happened, because up to that point I was like, oh, they're kind of changing the Mariner character to make her look as incompetent as the rest of the lower decks characters are. I was like, oh, maybe they're sort of course correcting for that character, but it turns out to just be she doesn't want to be promoted to that ship, so she's going to be inept in her duties until she actually has to save the day, and then her true personality comes out.
Yeah, I kind of wish maybe they had seeded the promotion possibility earlier in the episode, because that just kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah,
where it's just like, I knew you were going to give me a job, and she's like, I was going to give you a job, and so they don't really, you never really get that sense from the way that they're interacting before that. So I wish that was a little bit seeded a little bit better. And yeah, the stuff with Boimler was fine, but it was like, I don't know. It was really strange to take a transporter thing like that, and then
I love the transporter joke. The transporter joke is so good.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. It was just weird to me that they took him off the ship, and kind of put him on this other course that ultimately didn't really link into anything else. But it also just felt weird to take him off the ship.
I was surprised they cured him of the noise so quickly. I thought that was going to be the runner throughout the entire thing, that no one can, wherever he's standing, no one can hear each other because of the constant shimmering of the transporter noise, which I thought that was funny. I thought, like, that's probably my favorite joke that the show has made so far, to have someone stuck in the constant transporter noise. And I thought that they handled it fairly well. They didn't even really, I was expecting at the end where they save everyone and they all become those transporter ghosts and they're all making the noise. I expect when they're celebrating, there was no joke of character looking at another character going like, what are they saying? Like, what's happening up there? They stopped with that joke at that point.
Yeah, I think that was just what wasn't working for me for this one, was just like it didn't seem as tightly knit together as some of the other ones have been.
Yeah.
Even the thing with the dog. The thing with the dog, I thought the dog was funny. I liked the dog, but it was just such a background thing. Yeah. Like, it was just sort of like accenting certain scenes. And I don't know. I just...
felt a little redundant. I think it feels like Lower Decks does that quite a bit now, which is the kind of which I don't mind. I don't think it's bad, but it felt so superfluous on this one that I kind of noticed it. But it's the alien that looks cute but turns out to be a monster, basically, or has some like sort of devious, deceptive thing about it, and the dog fits in that picture. Although I like the ending with the dog. I thought was a fine enough payoff for that.
Sure.
And the joke being that Tendi doesn't know what a dog is supposed to be or act like.
Yeah, I was kind of wishing that they had left Tendi on the ship and had it been just Boimler and the dog, because I think having those two interact might have been kind of fun.
Yep.
Instead, you have Tendi, who's not really doing anything, and the dog, who's not really doing anything, and Boimler, who's interacting with all these other characters anyway. So it's yeah.
No, I thought they were pretty light plots in this one. I thought that they just, in my opinion, they kind of rode the joke well enough to get through it for me. Like I wasn't so let down initially by the joke or the conception of what the plot line was supposed to be that I was kind of waiting for it to be over or waiting for the gas to run out of it. I thought that they made it all the way through fairly effectively. The Mariner one, they do feel, if anything, the character beats feel a little bit redundant at this point, even 7 episodes in. Like, you know that Boimler is going to try to act well. I think the problem with the redundancy is just that the plots that these characters are in this episode are so slight that when it relies on a character beat that's so repetitious and that you know that character has to do it, it just feels like he's doing it just because that's the thing that character would do in this situation. Right. Like Mariner hiding her intention and Boimler deferring to authority in all cases, even if he thinks it's the wrong idea. But outside of that, I thought the comedy was fairly effective. This is the mix of Star Trek and the comedy, I think, that they've done the best out of everything. I just thought it was strong. It wasn't overly referential. And the characters who are non-Lower Decks characters felt like Starfleet officers. A little exaggerated, but they still felt like Starfleet officers.
Yeah. I liked the visiting crew. I thought they were fun. Because they were pretty straightforward, and I'm actually kind of surprised that there is no Vulcan on this show.
Yeah,
because it seems like a Vulcan would be such a perfect
straight man.
Yeah. So to have one there, this episode was kind of nice to get a little bit of that, because like I feel like you could do a whole episode about Mariner being paired with a straight-laced Vulcan or something.
Right. Yeah. No, it would be nice to have a Vulcan be a main senior officer, like the first officer or something. They have ransom.
How long?
In this case.
How long do Vulcans live generally?
Hundreds of years, 200, 300 years, something like that.
So is it possible that you could bring T'Pol onto this show?
Yeah, it is. I think
because that would be fun. Yeah, if you want to bring somebody back.
I would have that. I thought that I was the only disappointment I had, which is like a purely personal disappointment, is that it's such a reference to Jellico coming up on TNG from Chain of Command, and I love the character of Jellico. I was kind of wishing that it would be a joke about the captain who comes on is not what they're used to, and make it less about like a Mariner's personal relationship with this person and just have it be a character who, I guess in the Lower Decks universe, would be extremely Starfleet, like extremely buttoned up, and it would brace against them in the way that Jellico is kind of a different captain than what the crew expects in the TNG episode. I guess there's still time to do all of that stuff, but I was also waiting for, like, when you set up a Chain of Command thing, you don't have a torture scene in it. Like, maybe that's a little bit difficult to do, but I expected to see someone being hung up in that sort of iconic shot of Picard hanging from his wrists or whatever, like while they're planting seeds beneath him or something like that.
Yeah, we don't even know if they completed their mission.
Right.
I mean, I guess they did, because they came back at the end.
Yeah.
But like that's kind of my issue, I think, with this one, is it's like there's a lot of fun stuff in it, but I just didn't feel like it was as fully baked as some of the other ones were, as far as like where they were going with their jokes and whatnot. Because that the thing where they're going to plant the seeds is nice, but they don't really ever kind of really pay that off, other than just to have it in a background thing and shit. But yeah, it was good. I mean, it continues to be an enjoyable show.
Yeah, I guess it's how much I guess a lot of it's just the general criticism that we're coming back to is like how much of the show can just rely on referencing things as jokes, and how much should it try to focus on being more of a satire of Star Trek? Because I think if you flesh out the Chain of Command storyline and you turn it into a funny storyline, it's almost more of a satire than this one, which just seems to be more of a sitcom setup that has Star Trek trappings stuck to it.
Right.
And I think Star Trek I assume this is the way that they would want to go if they're looking for a more general audience to tune into this show. But I think the Star Trek fans would look for a little bit more of a satire spin on it, where the jokes being made kind of more are by necessity needs to be known. Like the original content needs to be known. The original source material needs to be recognized in order for the jokes to make a little bit more sense. And I think they're trying to strike the balance between those two things. And I don't know if the balance will ever be fully satisfying as something where you'd be like, that's a great animated show. It'll always just be kind of like, that's a fine time filler between seasons of real, quote unquote, real Star Trek.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think they have to be mutually exclusive. I think you can find a middle ground, but yeah, I don't know what that middle ground is going to look like. Whether or not it is going to be, you could be right. It could be ultimately just kind of fine, because in order for it to be really good, you have to commit to one way or the other.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's impossible to make a show that's satisfying, riding that line. Right. And I mean, they might be able to find that balance, and maybe it is actually really good. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Does the show even need to do that? Like, is there a desperation for this show because it's animated and because it's seen as like a Star Trek show, but not really a Star Trek show? Like, I mean that in the best way possible. Does it even really need to be anything better than something that people tune into every week? Like, it doesn't. I think other animated shows have a potential, like a sort of need to separate themselves and be exceptional, like like South Park or Simpsons or Family Guy. Even like there's because they are the only thing of that brand, they have to excel so that people will tune in to them.
Right. Sure.
And this one doesn't really have to. It's more riding the coattails of Star Trek, both creatively and advertisingly, marketing wise.
Yeah.
So it like I guess it's just a polite way of saying it's kind of filler content. It's like, how good does it actually have to be, or is this just fine the way that it is, and you just have to accept that it's going to be this sort of a weak sauce version of a animated show and a weak sauce version of a Star Trek show mixed together, and this is the best case scenario.
Well, what's interesting to me about it is, if I was in the production room, I don't know if it's not a sausage factory. It's
if I was in the machinery, a cog in the machine.
If I was out on the floor the
foreman came up to you.
No, if I was one the showrunner or whatever, I feel like I would kind of recognize that, or I would hope I would recognize that Lower Decks has the most potential to be a crossover hit, I think, because Discovery is still fairly niche, because it's, I mean, well, we'll see what happens after they air it on CBS proper, but I think Discovery is still fairly niche, and Picard is ultimately fairly niche as well, and neither one of them were received super well. Excuse me. So I think there's kind of like an opening for Lower Decks to kind of like slip through, and if they can really tighten it up and really if they really lean into it and really go for it with the show, I think it could be it could come out on the other end as the best. No, we have said that it's the best of the new Star Treks, but we are like, we're overly critical of the stuff. But I feel like it could be just a more widely accepted show as like, oh, this is the Star Trek that I like, because it has a little bit more room to play in a wider. My metaphors are just going all over. I was going to say room to play in a wider umbrella. I don't know if that makes any sense, but you know what I mean.
A lot of room under this umbrella to not get wet by it's raining cats and dogs.
Fit lots of people into this umbrella. Just don't open it inside a house. But like, I think it has the most room to really kind of make a run. Yeah. And really be something that stands out, because 3 seasons into Discovery, we're just sort of like, yeah, okay. And Picard was like, yeah, okay. It's not really, you're not really reaching a lot. It doesn't feel like either of those are reaching a lot of new people. I feel like Lower Decks might be able to do that if they really lean into it.
Yeah, they screwed it up by they should have done the Enterprise route and not put Star Trek into the title. It should just be Lower Decks, so people go, what's this animated show, Lower Decks, about spaceships and the Federation? It can't be Star Trek.
It was hilarious. The first episode was all Star Trek jokes. I can't wait to see what the rest of the show.
what other sci-fi franchises? What other sci-fi franchises are going to get the skewer of Lower Decks and its critical analysis? I guess I guess there's not really much else to say about the episode. If I was wondering when I was watching this today, because we record this fairly early on Thursday, and there's no way I'm staying up until midnight to watch this. So I watch it early in the morning, and I was wondering, do you think that you'd be much impacted if this was a 45-minute show? I think a lot of my enjoyment comes from the fact that it's over so quick that I can just watch it real easily and not care. And some, I think patrons or listeners were saying that this show is good, but they wish that it could be 45 minutes. And I'm like, no, I don't want 45 minutes of this. Like, I just want the 22 and to get me out of there. And I was wondering if it was longer, would I be more harsh on it? And I think I probably would, to a pretty strong degree. I think if this was a longer episode, I'd be much more, I'd be less forgiving of it. I think because I feel like it's consuming a lot of my time that it's not deserving, really, which sounds really harsh, but like the 45-minute or an hour is a lot to ask of people, and this is not a 20-minute episode.
Yeah, and it's like, what are you really gaining from making it twice the length? You know, like it
comes back to what we were saying about if you wanted to do a Star Trek episode parody, you kind of do need more time for it because you need to build off of things. But if they're just going to make jokes at the expense of Star Trek, 20 minutes is fine for that amount of material.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, I've never looked at an episode of The Simpsons and said, I wish this was an hour long. Yeah. Or an episode of South Park and said, oh, I wish this was an hour long.
That's what the movies are for.
Right. Yeah. You know, a special occasion. Yeah, I just don't know what gets added. I don't think the time restraint is a that much of a limiter, because those other shows that I mentioned tell amazing stories in 22 minutes. I think it probably feels like it should be longer because the pace is so fast, generally. So it probably feels like, oh, well, if they just slowed things down and let things breathe, maybe blah blah blah. But that's, you know, not what they. Well, I think they want to do, I guess. I
think what they cut out is the science fiction part of it. So the missions of Lower Decks are just like, here's a very familiar situation. The problem immediately happens, and here's our immediate solution to the problem, because it's not really about the adventure of the sci-fi journey that Star Trek normal episodes are. It's just about inserting a template onto something and then making some cracks about it and then getting the hell out of there very quickly, in a way that we complain about with Discovery and stuff. But it's not that kind of show. It doesn't need to have a resolution that's like, well, that tied up very nicely. It can have a cartoony resolution to it, and it's acceptable.
Yeah. Well, like, is the Orville an hour? I think the Orville's a half an hour, isn't it? Or are those hour long?
No, episodes? I think they're hours. I think they're 45 minutes.
Are they really?
Yeah, I think so.
I assumed they were half hour. We'll scratch that, I guess.
Let me check. But yeah, Orville.
No, I don't know if this specific show is really, if you really get that much by adding another half an hour.
Yeah, they're 45-minute episodes.
Oh, they are? Huh. Yeah. Why did I think they were half? Well, whatever. But yeah, I think, I mean, honestly, I find half an hour shows refreshing at this point.
Yeah, I do too.
Because everything is trying to be a fucking prestige drama now.
I find the worst. I even when we go back to Star Trek and it's a 42-minute episode, I'm like, fantastic. When all the new HBO shows are like 58 minutes, like 68 minutes, you know, it's like riding that hour mark. And it's like, just wrap it up in 40. That's fine.
Yeah. Then there's the ones where it's like, well, we actually don't have time caps because HBO is going to let us tell the story we need in the time that we need to do it. So it's like, oh, this episode is actually 85 minutes. Okay, great. Well, like, I'm pissed off. I only thought about this now because we were doing our content consumption recording yesterday, and I was struggling for things to talk about. And I was like, shit, I should have talked about Cobra Kai, because I've been watching Cobra Kai, the Karate Kid sequel show. Those are half an hour episodes, and oh my god, it's amazing. It's The show itself is fantastic, but it's just like a half an hour show that you could watch, get in and get out and feel satisfied by is just, it's like there's so many shows that I haven't even started because they're so daunting.
Yeah. For me, it's because it doesn't kill my evening. Like,
sure.
Just personally, it's like the kids go to bed, we have to clean up, and then like doing a whole hour is a significant amount of my time before I go to bed. So it's like it kills me being able to do something else. But if it's just a half hour, I've got a half hour to do. In my case, it's like edit or make a thumbnail or something like that. It's just it feels like it's much less intrusive into my evening to have a half hour than a full hour of something to watch.
Which is why I only watch Quibi, because everything's like 8 minutes, and I can watch 15 shows in the time it would take me to watch one show.
I just have Siri read tweets to me, and I'm like, good. This is the content that I need. And now I'm off to do something else.
I watch YouTube videos that are summaries of other YouTube videos, which are summaries of entire seasons of shows.
I don't think I've seen a Quibi yet. What's the gimmick? Is it just short? That's just the whole point.
Yeah,
it's like a Twitter for
just supposed
video
to be
content?
short and mobile friendly. I think it's supposed to be like, it shows you can watch on your phone in 8-minute bursts or whatever. The only thing I've ever watched on there is my girlfriend's a big Princess Bride fan, and they did this thing during quarantine where they had a bunch of people recreate basically the entire movie of Princess Bride, and it was a lot of fun. I recommend checking it out if you can find it.
Are the shows in vertical mode to take advantage of mobile? So they're all shot that way or made that way. Okay, interesting. I'm not gonna get into that, but I feel like vertical mode is slowly becoming acceptable in a way. Like,
dude, I just today saw a commercial for a new TV that you can turn vertically.
Yeah,
it's like it's supposed to be. It's like a Samsung
computer monitors can always do it. You can always do it for if you turn your computer monitor sideways, you can just change the resolution on it. But it's I didn't know. I guess the major problem with it was showing vertical video on non-vertical is obnoxious, but if you're watching it on your phone that way, or you're looking at Instagram stories, there's nothing really wrong with it. It's like it's just about people don't want the blank space on the sides of the screen. That's all it comes down to.
Yeah, and because if it's a horizontal thing, but it's a vertical image, it crunches the image, so it makes it
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a weird TV. The ad was really strange because it's like you can. It said it was 8K, which I didn't even know was a thing, and you can turn it vertically if you really want to watch, I guess, cell phone videos in 8K on like 55 inches. I
would just do it for recipes because when you're cooking, you're constantly scrolling for the recipe to come up and down, and if it's vertical, you wouldn't have to scroll as much.
If you really want to see that OnlyFans content in the best resolution possible, you turn that thing sideways, and it's also waterproof. Or like weather resistant. And in the commercial, they show like a bunch of guys watching football on the porch as it's like pouring rain.
Sure. Yeah.
What instances in your life are you going to need a waterproof television?
It's coronavirus, I guess, changing our expectations as to where we're going. Have we run out of things to talk about Star Trek Lower Decks? Is this the realm that we've run into? Not just this episode. Is it possible that the series is done? We have 3 episodes left, which is not bad, but
yeah, well, I think the thing the thing that generates the most conversation on any of these shows is the plot. And I think this plot is so light that it's just you kind of run through it pretty quickly. Like the other ones have Star Trek plots that I think are a lot more fascinating to talk about.
Yeah.
But this one is fairly light, and they keep doing this thing where the ship, it ends up being like a ship-wide crisis.
Yeah.
Whether it's their ship or another ship, and then they have to get out of it very quickly. I would like to see them do something different, so the stakes aren't always the ship is about to be destroyed or something has taken over the ship, or et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I guess that's the easiest way to get everybody involved. But it would be nice if they spread their wings a little bit and did stuff that wasn't so ship catastrophic every time.
A lot of the dangers have been alien that gets bigger. You know, like an alien that either absorbs something or this one's absorbing energy and it's slowly taking the ship apart. A lot of the threats that they've come onto have been that kind of a thing, which is like a incredible blob type storyline. It's like it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and sucking everyone into it, because they did that last week with the AI was just sucking up all the tricorders, and this one is sucking up the energy. And then there was the terraforming one, which is just getting bigger and bigger. And I also would like a break from that. I would like those just to become much more of a Star Trek parody thing. Like, just go down and meet some weird alien planet that, you know, the in some ways the animation frees them, but I don't feel that they really take advantage. Like, they talk to those like frog alien king, like the frog king is the leader of this alien planet, and I feel like there's room to really go there, as opposed to just having an alien that you can now animate as weird as you want, and so they're all going to look a little bit weird, but we don't comment on anything further than that. I would like a little bit more of that, I think, but it's still being tuned up, I suppose. I think they're making progress. I think the show is changing from what it was originally into something that is more what I was expecting, and I think suits the comedy better.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the one difference this time, though, in their ship-wide catastrophic event is they don't snap their fingers and everything goes back to normal. The ship actually gets destroyed. Yeah. Not the Cerritos, obviously, but the other ship that's been overtaken by this. I actually thought that was pretty good. I liked that that Star Trek element of it, where they go to this other ship that looks like it's been abandoned, but then they find the crew. And they're like, no, we turned everything off because there's something here. I thought that was really nice. That was a cool little plot.
Almost snuck up out of nowhere. I must have blinked or something, because they go from that terraforming the frog planet or whatever, fixing the water filters, to meeting with the Rubidoux, and that's where it was. I must have blinked because I was confused at where they were at that point. It's something that shifted and I wasn't paying attention. Yeah,
I think that's one of the things that takes a little bit getting used to with this show too, is because probably animation more than anything else, it allows them to do a lot of stuff. Like, they're not hampered by sets and whatnot, because that plot of them going to the Rubidoux and finding the crew and then finding out that there's an invisible alien that's going to crush it if you turn the lights on or whatever, that's like an entire episode of TNG right there.
Yeah.
But since they have this freedom to do whatever they want, they can go to 3 different planets and show you what they're doing on those 3 planets, and then hit the ship thing later on. So I'm wondering, I think the desire for it to be longer is probably built from the pacing of the show, because they do so much.
Those people would want them to explore either the water filtration or the Rubidoux thing. Instead of making it 3 pegs of a building joke with Mariner, it's just the focus of the episode. Right.
Which I think that shows you what the difference in what the focus of the show is, because this is at the end of the day a fairly character-centric show. Like, all the stories that they tell are very character-centric, and it's more about how the characters change or are affected by what's going on more than it is what's going on.
Right.
Whereas Star Trek is traditionally more of a what's going on type show.
Yeah. So Well, to clarify that, I guess it's Star Trek is also a character base, but it's the characters dealing with the situation is almost just as important as the characters in the sci-fi setting. But and Lower Decks says that's not the case. You can just make up the setting very quickly and then you insert the characters. I think the problem there is that the characters are fairly repetitive to this point. It's only 7 episodes in. So like when you're building your show around that, I think you need to either mix up the character interactions or give these guys something additional to do. Like I feel like Rutherford is missing something. He was missing from the episode this week. He's missing from this. Yeah, he does the fly experiment, which causes Boimler to turn into the energy creature. But he's missing like a depth adding characteristic or something. Like, I understand that he's kind of the nebbish nerd who wants to do everything quickly, and he's kind of he's an over eager to please kind of character. But I feel like he needs like a negative trait or something. There's something missing from him that makes him not fit in as a main cast member, and that it's hard for Rutherford to get a plot line, it feels like, because they're not sure what he would do in that situation. Yeah, they haven't totally figured him out outside of that surface level characterization, I think.
Which is
They've
too bad,
abandoned the Vulcan cyborg thing. That like his Vulcan suppression.
Yeah.
That seemed like it was going to be big in the pilot. It's not. They haven't mentioned it since.
Yeah. Well, I would be shocked if we don't get more from him, if not by the end of the end of the season, moving then by the time they get to season 2 and beyond, because like he's there's too much there for them that they could dip into to not do it. So
yeah.
I did like at the end when he beams everybody back and they're all glowing and they're like, "What happened?" And he's like, "It's just cosmetic." And they're like, "It's just cosmetic."
I did like the sound joke. I thought that was pretty clever. That's it. I guess we're done talking about Much Ado About Boimler. It is the 7th episode of Star Trek Lower Decks' first season. Thank you very much for listening. You can go to patreon.com/The Penske File if you want to support the show. A couple dollars a month gets you extra stuff. You can also get a special shout out if you're a captain. Special thank you goes to Christian Pouch, Tark Latif, Chris Tinsley, Mike Burnett, Sean Cardinal Doomsday, Joint Mango, Matt Cutler, Ben Douglas, Neil Brennan, Cal Barrett, Samuel Custer, Nick Sergey, Bradley Killens, Matt Ross, Arun Vendler, Nathan Elliott, Eric Johnson, Andrew Chirlog, Grim Santo, Poindexter G, Dwayne Hackett, Jordan Cooper, Derek Zajac, Russell Elledge, Kevin Reyes, Vault 13 Hero, Stefan Minton, Darth Mosk, HH28, Ned Curry 6, Jake 123, Mike Harris, Jake East Gamer, Patrick Seba, Captain Brazen, Kevin Larry, Eric Antron, Corey Martin, William Seisler, Timothy Cooley. Thank you very much for supporting the show. We'll be back with Enterprise as well at this point, and our continuing coverage of that show. And I think Discovery starts just when Lower Decks ends. I'm personally disappointed about that.
Do you want a break?
I do, and I almost feel like I want to get through Enterprise faster.
Yeah.
You know, like
yeah. I'm really crossing my fingers that Discovery is good this season for me, because like I don't know what my state of mind is going to be slogging through a bad season of Discovery and
a bad season of Enterprise.
This middle maudlin season of Enterprise that's just like everybody shows up for work, punches in and punches out, and then that's it. You know, that's the problem with it. I have no reason to do Discovery other than it's a hot topic. Really, it doesn't seem to create that much more interest in the channel or the show or anything like that. So I'm just being negative. It is, the downside is if it's a bad season of Discovery, we're just watering down 2 relatively bad seasons to get through, and it just takes doubly as long. And it's like I don't know if that's the best way forward, because I do want to get through Enterprise. I'm personally more interested in Enterprise than I am Discovery's next season. You're probably the opposite, but that's not to say anything about the quality, just about what you're looking forward to. Yeah, I'm the opposite at this point, where I actually am legitimately interested as to what they're going to do on Discovery. That could change very quickly. I don't know. Come back next week where we complain about having to watch these shows, I guess. I know it's not great incentive for people to come back for us to be like, I don't know, guys, the next month is just the next 6 to 8 weeks are just gonna be a slog.
Just a real slog.
So come back and join us.
Everyone, I think even the listeners are like, can we just get to season 3 of Enterprise, which is what this is break. Like I need to get through season 2 of Enterprise to get to season 3, and season 3 is different than season 2. So at least that's something to sort of talk about and do things with.
Yeah.
Otherwise, all the other shows are at thepenskyfile.com. There's Rotten Horror Picture Show, and then there's Badass continuing as always. And the other Patreon, the new Patreon goal. So if you become a $5 member of the Patreon going forward, and we get to the $800 a month goal, then you and Amanda are going to be doing special horror franchise podcasts where you go through every movie in a horror franchise.
Me and Amanda, not you as like the listener and Amanda.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure she'd be happy to talk to you. Yeah, I'm sure she'd be happy to talk to you about horror movies, but it's going to cost you more than $5.
The video is just a Zoom call with a million things on the screen and everyone shouting about Freddy Krueger. Yeah, but you're going to be going through every film in a horror franchise once a month. You'll come out for that. It'll be the $5 patrons on patreon.com/The Penske File. So if you guys are interested in that, sign up. Once it gets to 800, they'll start releasing those things. I guess that's it.
We're pretty close too. Well, I mean, relatively close.
Relatively close, yeah.
And the sooner we get to that, it puts us within striking distance of our $900 goal, which is Wes and I do the entirety of Voyager.
Yes.
Which I feel like...
Which is 7 years away because of Discovery and Enterprise alternating weeks.
I do feel like I'm like a clown in a dunking booth on that one, though, where it's like just daring people to throw the ball at the target and knock it into the water.
You didn't get the salamander joke until you've seen Voyager's Threshold, I suppose.
Oh, I got it. I've seen people talk about it enough. Got it by osmosis of joke.
I like the lower deck spin on that joke is we think he's human.
Yes, yeah.
That's it. Thank you very much for listening, guys. We will see you next time.